Hey, welcome. It's Brian Lawton here again with Small Business Conversations about COVID. I am joined with Stephanie Lawton and Dave Nelson here. Hi, guys. Thanks for joining me
Hello,
today.
Brian, of course.
Stephanie is a Vice President and Small Business Portfolio Manager with First National Bank and Trust here in Wisconsin, right?
Correct.
That was a lot of stuff to say.
It was a lot.
Dave Nelson is a director in commercial banking with BMO Harris. So I wanted to welcome both of you. The reason you guys are relevant to this, obviously, is you're on what now is the financial front lines, dealing with, the federal money coming in through SBA, and you're seeing firsthand the impact economically on everybody's Main Street, especially here in Wisconsin, specifically where we are, but really probably anywhere. And I'm just looking forward to chatting with you about that. I think the feedback I get from these conversations is that it helps to know what other people are going through and how they're navigating this as small business owners or people that manage small businesses. So welcome, and thanks for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Let's just start with, what are some common themes, common questions you're getting from your clients? Basically, your clients are people that loan money from banks at a small business sort of level. I think, Dave, maybe you both even work with some larger businesses even, but kind of that 500 employee and lower, or even smaller than that. What are some themes? What are some common questions you're getting asked right now? I'm sure your phones don't stop ringing, and you're working obviously a lot of hours on SBA and all these questions us small business owners have. So what are you seeing out there as commonalities?
I guess for me, Brian, I think a lot of it is really understanding the situations. I think each company is different. We've had some that are doing well in this, but I think what really the common theme is, those that were around back in 08, 09, is just the precipitous drop that occurred with this versus what happened, with Lehman Brothers and et cetera, in September of 08, which is more of a kind of a gradual climb to the bottom that we troughed out in. So I think now it's you have restaurants shut down, you have supply chain interruption, and I think, I don't know if it's the same thing for Steph, but we really were focusing primarily on China for a long time. Is what's the supply risk with China, and then you move it all to domestic, and it's really turned into really trying to define an individual plan for each client, because I think everybody's situation is different. Those that had liquidity and cash and investments to help withstand obviously are doing okay, but a lot of of our clients that had they were either doing some acquisitions to grow their business, doing capital expenditures to grow their business and be more efficient, are really having to reevaluate that now because of just the change in the environment. And I think to your point, Brian, is it's hard to determine what the tail risk is on this. If we go back to normalcy in May, June, that's great. But if we wipe out 2-3 months of productivity or profits for small businesses or even larger businesses, it's really trying to understand what is going to be that kind of mid to long-term ramification on our borrowers and the economy as we kind of get through this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. Steph, what are you seeing as far as even the smallest of businesses that you deal with, or kind of your more typical, businesses out in our local communities here? What are their questions that they're coming to you with most often?
A lot of them, there's kind of three prongs. There's a subset of customers who they have their rainy day fund and then some, so they're good and they're waiting this out, but they still want to chat with bankers. What do you guys think is going to be coming down the pike? How long do you think this is going to be lasting? Very tangible, how do I handle this over the coming months type of questions. Mm-hmm. The other two prongs, I would say, as of late, there's been a lot of, hey, the government's handing out free money. How do I sign up? And there's a lot of questions around that. A big thing to know is that, yes, that program that was just signed into law last Friday, yes, there will be some forgivable portions of those loans, but don't think it's free money. There might be portions that cannot be forgiven. So that's something that we really want to stress to our customers. those are the big ones. I would say we do have customers, as Dave was saying, that we're planning on expansions, maybe opening a second or third location, things like that. All of that has been put on pause. We all have to see how this plays out. And there's so much uncertainty. Even if we can start opening up in the coming 2-3 months, there's still going to be that public hesitation to, okay, but can I really go out there? And is that really okay?
Yeah, that's a good point. As a small business person, that's trying to hold on to our W-2 staff and not lay people off, because there's a human side to this that, we're sort of entering this economic phase of it, obviously. But the first wave, I say, was the humanity of it. Like, let's keep safe. Let's get our facilities safe. Let's learn how to do things virtual. Let's do the socially right thing in being socially distant, and address the pandemic of this from a health perspective at our company and corporate levels. And then, the second phase of that was all the logistics. You're keeping your people and all the health and safety. And the second wave has been this logistical thing, like, how do we get people set up quickly to be virtual? What do we got to do to deep clean those offices and communicate to clients and stuff like that? All those logistical pieces. And then parents had the kids coming home from school, and now we're sort of set up. And this third wave came, and it's what I've seen from small business owners and in our company or whatever, like, is the emotional phase of this. Like, okay, now you've had a couple of weeks and you can maybe start to figure out what just happened, pretty much. And we're starting to see that, like, okay, now what's the routine? I mean, I know you guys, pretty much 7 days a week probably are working, because now you're home and it's in front of you and people are peppering your questions, and you've got the pressures of SBA and the federal funding that's coming through and all this. And kind of what you're saying, Stephanie, like, for the small business owner now, the emotion of it is also attached to this. And where do I even begin to fill out these applications? And then the SBA site crashed one day last week, and now the application process changed 3 times. Now there's a new program about forgivable money that's separate from the first one. And if you apply for the forgivable one, are you okay doing the loan? Like, there's all that stuff. So what are some of these fears or anxieties maybe you're seeing? And this isn't doomsday, right? The end of this is positivity, but what are the current anxieties you're dealing with small business owners?
I think it's just the unknown. As it pertains to those programs in specific, there's so much misinformation floating around out there. And instead of contacting a banker who has a direct line to the SBA and can get very specific answers, they're relying on all of this hearsay. And I think that's where the fear is coming from, is until they actually talk to someone who knows, they have no idea what to think of all of it, and they have no idea how to even go about attempting to get these funds to save their business. So that's the bulk of the fear that I am seeing right now. I don't know about Dave, with your size clients.
Let me just interject.
No,
super good.
Okay.
The takeaway from that is either you as the owner, or you have to have assigned a person or a team only working on this.
Yes.
And because you have other stuff to work on as likely an owner, but small business owners wearing all these different hats or whatever, that's good advice. That's a good takeaway. Make sure you're relying on your banking business partner, really. Dave, what were you going to say there?
No, yeah, I totally agree. And I think it's, everybody throws around the idea of bankers being a trusted advisor to their clients. And I think this is where it truly is. I mean, we, as Steph said, we have the see-through into the SBA, whether you're a preferred lender and some of those programs where we obviously have a lot of 7A or 504s or any of the small business loans through the SBA to be able to have that insight. And as you said, Brian, I mean, the applications change multiple times. People are trying to get in front of it, and we all understand that. But it's, the information has been coming out, I think, a lot more piecemeal than I think everybody expected it to. So again, but it's hard to say, be patient and wait on information from your relationship manager at the bank to get this going, because like you said, this could be the differentiator between staying open and closing the doors. And but I think to Steph's point, I mean, one of the issues too is just the environment's changed so much. I think if you told people hey, in 90 days or in a quarter and a half, everything will be back to kind of January, February levels from a sales and an expense perspective, I think it'd be one thing. But, people not knowing if this 2.5 times of the payroll is going to be enough to, like you said, Brian, to keep your W-2 employees employed and not have to look at, staffing levels. I think it's just a lot of great unknowns right now. And I know Steph and I, and I think all bankers and all of the people that you talk to, Brian, that have bankers that aren't Steph and I, obviously understand that, once this program goes, I mean, there's only 350 billion, which again seems like an insane amount, but you broadcast that across all 50 states and every bank and small business up to 500 employees trying to get a piece of it. It's going to go quick. And I think some people think there'll be another tranche of it, but that's again, the unknown, because there's only so much quantitative easing that we can do as an economy to
it only prints so much money.
Exactly. So I think that is, again, it's having to be patient enough to kind of reset expectations and thoughts as the environment changes.
Yeah, I think one of the fears and anxieties we have internally initially is what you just said, which is this is 300 billion or whatever. And yeah, maybe there's more funding coming, which is a whole different conversation about the percentage of GDP that we're writing back into our economy from the government. But, 350 divided by 50 leaves not much,
Mm-hmm.
billion a state. And so I guess what I'm getting at is, should businesses be afraid? I don't want to cause fear, but that if we don't get our applications in, is it that? Is it just we received yours first? How do they determine? Because it has a finish line, the funding.
Yep. Right.
So what is it? How do they determine? Do you even know who gets funded, who doesn't? If you're all have qualified in the right way according to the application, how do they figure that out?
So Dave, correct me if I'm wrong. You might have different information than I. The initial information that came out is it's first come, first serve. So it is based on timing of application. But the big question is, the SBA still doesn't know how they want banks to submit these applications yet. It's probably going to be one of two methods, but it's just not ironed out yet. So we have all the banks out there are already preparing their customers saying, get your information now so we can have fastest finger come Friday, Saturday, Sunday, whatever. So can the system even support the influx they're going to be getting here shortly? We just don't know how it's going to go.
Yep. And I think on that point, and piggyback onto some other conversations that we've all had of what else is there in the toolbox, again, is being prepared as a business owner. Okay, if I don't get my allocation through PPP, what are my next steps? Which I think is something that everybody needs to be aware of, is because, like you said, Steph, I think everybody's like, oh, it's a free handout. But again, understanding the program and understanding that, again, there might not be any cookies left in the cookie jar when you get there. And it's a tough reality, because I think Friday afternoon when this got passed, everybody's like, oh, this is great. This is exactly what the economy needs. But, you start allocating this out across the entire U.S. and that bucket gets a lot smaller. And it's going to be some hard conversations, but I think some good conversations with business owners come, middle of next week or whenever the allocation runs out, as to what these next steps are going to be.
Yeah, that's great. So the first takeaway I heard from Stephanie was make sure you've got somebody appointed in your business to work directly with somebody in the know and with a direct line to SBA, your banker, your business partner there. And Dave, you just gave another great takeaway for small businesses, which is, okay, that's fine. We've got these lending programs, and then you've got perhaps this forgivable version from the government as well. But what if you don't get it? What are your planning steps? You need to be planning without versus planning with that. I think you do put yourself in a huge vulnerability. If you're planning to get this money and it's not there, that's a big misstep for a business at this point. And this is not the moment for a misstep. So you have to get your other arrangements. Yeah, that's good advice. Anything else on that, Steph?
No, I mean, I just echo Dave's comments. Yeah, like this is, phase 3, if you will, but everybody, business owners especially, should already be thinking about phase 4, phase 5, phase 6. This year should already be played out in their head. So just reiterating what everybody else has already said, get your ducks in a row, think ahead. I know it's very easy to get caught up in the moment and stay there, but you got to set that aside at some point, and turn your brain power towards the future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's super good advice, because, none of us, and I'm in the real estate industry, and, you deal with that industry as well, and you deal with a lot more industries, but part of the conversation visioning 2020 for the business wasn't this big focus on burn rate. And all of a sudden,
all about burn rate.
Goals in, and we're not thinking that. First, it's like, we got to all learn how to calculate burn rate, or these other rates that, like, even that adjustment of thinking into look how fast we can grow and do whatever. And Dave, you were saying earlier, like, companies caught in expansion or having invested capital into maybe infrastructure or franchising or whatever, holy smokes, like,
yeah,
all of a sudden it became a burn rate conversation, not an expansion conversation.
Well, we had a conversation internally today talking about, remember when people thought there was gloom and doom when we're talking about, 1.5 or 1.6 GDP growth year over year in 2020. And like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? And then you fast forward to today, and, you've seen some very gloomy, double digit negative from a quarter over quarter perspective. And it just puts, again, to your point, Steph, it's really having to be able to adapt on the fly. And then we're talking to clients too, where they're looking at reforecasting 2020, and their worst case that they put together a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, now theoretically is your best case. Mm-hmm. And year over year drop in 35%, and it's insane. But it's really the need to have the communication internally and also with your banking partners to keep everybody on the same page.
Yeah. Right.
And I think it's created good conversations. I mean, I've told the relationship managers that I've worked with, and just the amount of conversations they're having with their clients over the last 2 to 3 weeks compared to previous years are like, it's night and day. So I think one good piece of it is just that communication that's evolving, and doing it remote and doing it all on the phone or video chat versus windshield time out to go see clients. It's sort of been one positive of really creating a interesting dynamic that we all have to kind of live through right now.
Yeah. Oh, that's good segue into my next thing, which is kind of silver linings that you're seeing. And I think what you're getting at, Dave, is how quickly we've had to adjust to virtual life and virtual business. As important as it is to be socially distant right now, we're humans and we require connectivity, and our businesses require connectivity. And, that is a silver lining. We're all learning about all sorts of new technology and new ways to do business. And what other silver linings are you seeing out there?
I've got some that I really want to talk about.
Okay.
So first of all, we have a lot of property owners who are very well off, and their properties that they hold are rentals, and it's just extra income. And they have said, your rent is forgiven for the foreseeable future. Until this passes, you do not need to pay us. To me, that's a huge silver lining. Not only indicative of those people, but this is popping up all over the place. People are, we're all in this together type of mentality, and we're trying to fix the problem, solve the issue in a collective way, which I think is very powerful, quite frankly. Mm-hmm. Another amazing thing for me in particular, I work with such small businesses. They're very nimble, and they can very quickly adapt their business model as needed. So we have a lot of companies who, this is why I love entrepreneurs, because they are problem solvers and they can get creative. So they had to shut their doors, but they have figured out how to still generate even some revenue by going online, hosting their gymnastics classes online, doing takeout orders, stuff like that, revamping the type of food they've chosen to make, going from this type of restaurant to, well, we can make this cheaper and quicker, so let's do this. It's better suited to eat street, so that's what we're going to do. So those are the big things that I've seen that I absolutely love.
Yeah, the innovation, and I talked to a restaurant owner yesterday about the same thing, in a conversation about their small business, and that was one of their takeaways and silver linings too, was how they're going to have to learn to reinvent, even when it's time to reopen, because this notion that, okay, it's May 1st or June 1st or whenever this, or August 1st or whatever this end time to the health pandemic comes, the notion of, we're isolated one day and the next day it's business as usual is not a thing. And they're already projecting what that might look like, which is a great silver lining, and how they can repurpose and retool and look different, but probably look better. That's a great piece of advice, Steph. Dave, what are you seeing as kind of silver linings?
No, I would echo Steph. I mean, it's been crazy, even on the larger scale of clients, even just some of the positive conversations that have come out of this. I mean, you have some that it's kind of like, this is the worst thing that could have happened, but you have others where, as Steph alluded to, they've learned to adapt and create different markets, sell into different markets. We had a client that worked with a large retailer, and we're part of a 8 company bid on a large project, and based on the fact that the other 7 couldn't fulfill the contract, they picked up substantial additional revenue, and they've been able to adapt it. It's one of those that they're probably not even going to apply for the PPP because they're doing that well, and it's purely because, again, they source a lot domestically, and they've been able to adapt and meet the demand of their end users. So, again, it's the entrepreneurial spirit that I think is, whether it's a $500,000 revenue client or $1 billion revenue client, it's continued, and I think it's really brought employees together with with the ownership group, employees together with each other. A lot of us have laughed. It's like, this is sort of ruining working from home for all of us. But we had clients on, billion-dollar people that I've heard about of companies where they really didn't have a work from home component to their kind of contingency plan, because why would we ever have to do this? We're a big contractor, and they're like, how did you guys do this? And so I think it's just, again, it goes back to the conversation. I think there's a lot of things that we kind of lost in the age of hiding behind email, or, hey, we'll reach out to our, even as a banker, you reach out to your client, we'll hit the number of calls we need to do just to keep management off our back. But we've been talking to clients on a daily basis, and I think it really does substantiate our relationship. So I guess from that level of just from being a banker, of really maintaining those relationships and improving them over what's really a once in a generation, once in 100-year kind of issue that we have.
I knocked on wood just for everybody.
Yes.
Thanks, Dave.
Yeah.
We're good.
I think that's great to hear, Dave, because, and Steph, the entrepreneurial spirit there, a company that could apply that decides not to, because the message from the government has been really clear. If you listen, those that need it should apply.
Yes.
Agreed.
And so it's great to hear that people are self-governing that, because it's not meant for everybody. It's meant for people that need this money to get through to the next phase. And I'm glad to hear that. And, we can wrap it up. Any other pieces of advice or takeaways or action items you might have for a small business, Steph?
Oh my gosh. Hang in there, stay creative, keep in touch with your banker. That relationship is vitally important right now, especially if you're going for the SBA loan. and work your network. It's all about creativity at this point, and you just gotta keep your eye down the road. Try not to get too caught up in this particular moment, and keep going.
Good advice. Dave, what about you?
Yeah, I agree. And I think, kind of what we talked about earlier is if, you don't get your allocation in the PPP loan, it's not the end of the world. I mean, regardless of the bank you work with, I feel like it's much more, banks are much more open, I would say, in the tools they have in their toolbox in this kind of issue versus back in 08, 09. So talk to your banker, talk about options, talk, whether it's principal deferral, additional working capital, whatever. I think everything's on the table, and each situation can be different. But again, to Steph said, talk to your banker. You can never over communicate enough right now. I know we all have a ton going on, but phone call, email, and chat. So again, I think just stay in contact, and again, it's this is gonna get past us at some point. We've all, the country's gone through a lot of this stuff in the past, and I think it's just having faith in the fact that we'll get through this and come out better on the back end.
We're lucky to live where we live, and it does have an end date. We'll get through it with positivity and the stories that you share. Thanks so much for hanging out and talking about banking and small business right now. It's crazy, but I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.